Hi everyone, welcome to Simply Tech Tales. I'm Madhuri, a semiconductor engineer by profession, and I have over a decade of experience in this field. In this video, I'm going to discuss my interview prep and journey at Qualcomm, and if you're interested, please follow along. Let's get started. So, I'd like to make a disclaimer that this is not a formula video. This is what worked for my background, my timing, and my experience. So with that in mind, let me give you a little context of how it all started for me. So back in 2011, when I was in my final year of engineering college, I was doing my ECE. We had Qualcomm employees, some of them come to our college, wherein they wanted to conduct a workshop or a training program where they wanted to upskill engineering students from local colleges, because back then they were only hiring from IITs, NITs, BITS, some of the premier institutes. So their intent was to give an opportunity to those in tier 2, tier 3 local engineering colleges as well. So because my college in Hyderabad was in the city center, they approached our college and asked if they could conduct some classes to upskill engineering students. So then over the weekends, for over a period of 6 months, they used to conduct classes for us in some of the engineering subjects, especially electronics or whatever are needed in the industry to upskill yourself. So then their intent was to basically choose students who had less than 60% aggregate in their engineering. But although I did have above 75%, I still asked them if I could be a part of this program, because I thought it would be a nice starting opportunity, because we didn't have too many placements back then at college. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to get into this and see if I could make it to Qualcomm. So with that intent, they started the classes, and over every Saturday and Sunday, we used to have classes on programming or electronic subjects, basics of communication, whatever is needed for the industry and what academia is not able to cover. So we had the students from all over Hyderabad, and there were about 80 to 85 students in that program. And the classes went on for a few months, and then we had written test, out of which I think 27 students got selected in the written test, aptitude. And then these 27 students had interviews from Qualcomm, some of the engineers and managers at Qualcomm. And then out of which finally 3 students got selected, and no prizes for guessing. I was the only one from my college EC branch to get selected. Basically, after the selection got done, let me also tell you that this was for a temporary employee role, because as I mentioned earlier, back then Qualcomm was only hiring from premier institutes. So we would get those from local engineering colleges would only get hired as contract employees. And then you would be tied on to a different company. You will be on the payrolls of another company, but work in Qualcomm lab with Qualcomm engineers and their team on their projects. So after the interview at Qualcomm, my then manager himself decided on to which consultancy or company he wanted to tag us with. So we were then tagged on to that particular respective companies. And then my journey began in 2012 as an associate engineer working on multiple Qualcomm projects. So this was the first part of my journey. And then I got to work on multiple projects over the next few years. As you know how the job market works, most of the roles actually get filled up internally itself. So initially, when you're getting started, there's no harm in maybe starting out as a temporary employee as well, if you are unable to make it as a full-time employee in some of these big tech tier 1 semiconductor firms. So that's what happened in my case, and that's how my career also started. But like as you know that some of these roles get filled up internally without it even coming on any job portal or LinkedIn, etc. So when there was an opening for a full-time senior engineer within my team, because I had already handled so many projects and I was working, I was the first one to be referred for a full-time role. So that's when I had my actual interviews, Qualcomm interviews, that I had to give in order to clear this interview and get into that role of a senior engineer. So that's when I had about 4 rounds of interviews, 3 technical and 1 HR sort of a round. So the first technical round was mostly about communications. I was back then working on 4G technology, so I was asked a lot about protocol, call flows, VoLTE, how the functioning happens, how do you resolve issues, what are some of the problems that I encountered. And I was also working on battery power optimization. So how do you optimize in this particular scenario? These were the kind of questions that I was asked in that first technical round. Then the second technical round was more about the chipset, the actual Qualcomm chipsets that we were working on. What are the underlying features, foundation of how the chip works? How does your phone boot up when you switch on? What's the internal functioning of the chip? These were some of the questions on the chip side that were the focus on the round number 2. Then round number 3 was more about the tools, the internal Qualcomm tools that we were using. So that round, I would say, didn't go too well. There was a little bit of coding as well because my role was mostly as a test engineer. I didn't have too much experience with coding and debugging. But anyway, some basic questions I was able to answer. But I think I still could have done better in that particular round. And the 4th round was again like more of a HR behavioral kind of how I would fit into the Qualcomm ecosystem and what were my salary expectations, negotiation, these sort of things. So overall, after these 4 rounds, the feedback has been pretty positive. And so I joined within the same team in the role of a senior engineer. So that's how I got converted from a contract to a full-time Qualcomm employee on the payrolls of Qualcomm. So this was all about my journey. Okay, so now comes the interesting part that you all have been waiting for. If you are interested to prepare for a role or an opening in Qualcomm, what is it that you can do and how is it that you can prepare and navigate through this journey? So I have 3 scenarios. Basically, if you are an engineering student with EC background, you can actually focus on some of the foundational subjects such as analog or digital electronics, then communication, especially I've seen that 5G communication is also one of the elective. So before applying for a particular company, you could actually research on what that company is into, what are they working on. So based on that, you can choose subjects that are actually useful for cracking interview of that particular company. For example, Qualcomm is into RF and 4G, 5G mobile technologies. So it'll be nice if you could have good basics on these subjects. For example, a few years back, I was interviewing a candidate in my team for a fresher role associate. And in her resume, she mentioned that she did a project on VoLTE and IMS. So that was something that we've not heard of just in your BTech doing projects on VoLTE or IMS. So when I asked her about the call flow, she was able to do it, explain it so well that we had to ultimately select her. So it will be good instead of focusing on multiple subjects and being a master of so many subjects. It's good that if you choose 2-3 subjects, tell at the beginning of the interview to whoever is interviewing you that, my favorite subjects are this. So then it's a good way to navigate the interview in the direction that you want. And whatever is your strength, you could speak up more about it, and that will lead to a very positive start. So that is one tip that I have. And if you are a CS grad in your BTech, then I don't think it makes sense to grind lead code problems because that's not what the hardware companies generally focus on. Here, you would mostly be doing low-level programming, embedded C. So here what they test is more of your system level thinking, how you are able to solve or approach a problem, the algorithm that you would like to implement before actually going into syntax or code part of it. So yeah, I would say that focus on the embedded systems and writing small low-level programming. And then if you are an MTech grad and wanting to break into this field, then of course you would have VLSI, embedded systems, low-level, low-power design in VLSI. These kind of subjects are actually useful, and you can talk more about whatever projects that you're doing and make sure that every line that you write on your resume, you are able to clearly articulate and explain it. Whatever technical terms that you use, you're clear on what exactly those mean in the context of what you have done. So I hope that this information was useful to you. Now let's also focus on some of the additional things that you could do in order to highlight your profile or resume and first get an interview call. As you know, in today's day and age, AI is becoming such an important and integral part of whatever we are doing at our workplace, in our projects, etc. So if you can use AI to build small projects, because there are umpteen number of vibe coding tools as well. In fact, I myself built a project called Chipmate a few months back, wherein it helps with improving the productivity of engineers in terms of the log analysis that we do. And again, it came from a pain point that I was facing as an engineer, and so was my team. So we thought we could do it faster with AI. So in your college as well, you could choose projects, work on small projects, demos, and see how you can confidently present these. And the other part is about having your personal brand or presence. So it's becoming increasingly important, and it'll be a good idea if you can post regularly on LinkedIn or other platforms. LinkedIn is, according to me, the best platform where you have most of the recruiters, hiring managers, and other people from the corporate community. So you could share small, if you, for example, learned about a new topic today. So you can write a short post about it and ask your friends, what do you think of it? You could have a discussion. So having an active social presence is also equally important. So you can talk about your projects that you're working in. You can also reach out to hiring managers and tell them what are the kind of roles that you're interested in. So I would say at the initial beginning of your career, you will not have much of a choice on what exact role or team that you want to go into, RF or physical layout or analog design, whatever. Sometimes it's not always sometimes in your hands. Just getting into the role, getting a job is what matters the most. Later on, based on your interests and other openings, you can always switch internally. So these were some of the tips. I hope I didn't miss out on anything, and if I did, you can ask more questions in the comments and I would be happy to answer. And if you want one-on-one consultation or general career guidance, then you can just check out the link in the description and I'd be more than happy to help you in whatever way I can. And this is a new channel and I'm trying to put out some useful content, and I hope that in the next 1 year we'd be one of the biggest semiconductor communities out there on YouTube. So I'm excited for this journey and I hope you join me too. And if you find this video useful, then hit the subscribe button and I will see you in the next video.